So the single item on the agenda for tonight was to hold a hearing on the proposed land use ordinance revisions. So I don't expect that this is going to be a very lengthy meeting, but we definitely need to open these revisions up for public comment. I haven't seen that there's anyone from the public here with us tonight, but if there are interested parties or if they join us, we are prepared to take their comment and questions. So I will open the hearing on the land use ordinance revisions. You've all had an opportunity to look at the revisions. We can go through them if that would be helpful. And if not, we don't have to do that. We've talked about all of these things as a group, but not with all of the language in front of us and the opportunity to have reviewed it all. So I guess I'd open that up for conversation. We can go through each piece and summarize it and discuss it if you'd like, or not.
Did you go through it all, and did you summarize it for the select board or something like that?
Yeah, I did. I put together it was a bulleted list, a summary of each of the revisions that we were proposing. I could run through that quickly to refresh everyone's memory, and if there's some aspect of this in particular that we want to come back to and talk about, we could do it that way too. So the bulleted list that I had put together for the select board, it's 6 individual bullets. The first of those were the revisions to Article 6, Section 3, which is the site review piece. And Jack had done a lot of work here there was a lot of reorganization and reformatting to make it clearer and to make this is all process around site review. And Jack, if you want to speak to that, I mean, exactly how you approach that. But what I put in the list for the select board was that it was reorganized for ease of use and clarity, and that there was some new language to provide clarity and to update certain provisions. So if you want to highlight those, Jack.
Well, I tried to change it so that it followed the process that we normally follow, because a lot in there was stuff we didn't do. And the only thing that I feel a little maybe uneasy about, or I think it said in our current ordinance that when we make a decision, we make findings of fact. And I knew that we don't always make findings of fact. So I put in there that we may do findings of fact, or if requested by an interested party, we will do findings of fact. So that was it.
Well, when I looked at that piece, Jack, I meant to ask you this question and I didn't. When the new template was put together for issuing decisions,
Right.
there is a section in there, I thought, that isn't there like a findings of fact section in the template? That might be brief. They're not always comprehensive findings of fact.
Right.
But it seems like that template forces us to make findings of fact.
Yeah, but we don't do it, I don't think. I mean, for example, if we make a finding of fact on greatest practical extent, and we say that there's a septic system or utility pole behind there. When I spoke to Will Gagne Holmes at the Board of Appeals, he said, well, you need to put in there that the pole or the road is 47 feet from the house or whatever. He said that's a finding of fact. It's not enough to say there's a pole in the way, because that doesn't give you enough information. I don't know, he wanted more detail in findings of fact, but we don't have to go by that. But I mean, normally most of these cases are non-controversial, so we don't put a lot of effort into the decision. And when
I
it
mean,
is
in those
controversial,
cases where it is controversial or significant, we've always done very
right,
complete decisions.
so this gives us sort of an option.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, Jack, to give an option in a simple situation where findings of facts really aren't necessary, to give us sort of that out.
Yeah. 'Cause it-
Yeah. And I think practically speaking, you know, we've, as Jack said, we've kind of made that choice. You know, we've done more comprehensive findings in significant controversial cases than the run-of-the-mill applications.
There were also some things in there where it said, you know, if an applicant appears before us and they ask for an extension and we give them an extension and then they don't do something that they were supposed to do, that we have to deny the application. So I took out things like that to give us more flexibility, that we may deny the application or we may set a new date or things like that, you know, which is what we normally do. So it would give us the option of, you know, under the current ordinance, it would say we have to deny if the person doesn't come back within 30 days with additional information. Now it says that we don't have to deny it. We have other options. So there were several places where I did things like that.
And, you know, the things that I read in there, Jack, tell me if you agree with this, but it seemed, well, you said this at the outset, that it better reflects what we actually do.
Right.
And what's, you know, a practical approaches, rather than some of the letter of the current ordinance.
The only thing that I added to the decision, which is on the form, is that we have to give the person notice of their appeal rights. That isn't in our current ordinance. It is on the form.
Yeah.
But I thought it should be in the ordinance.
Yeah.
And other than that, it was sort of reorganizing it, putting it in the order that we follow.
Mhm.
There were one or two places where I think that there was a requirement for posting something. I'm just trying to,
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up.
so for instance,
Yeah.
the site inspection one says, well, the planning board shall post the date, time, and place of the site inspection at the town office. And I guess I would suggest that we would want to be putting it on the town website.
We do that and the post office.
So it's another thing that we actually do anyway, so.
Yeah,
The post offices.
oh, I see. Where is that, Don?
That's J under B1.
On-site inspection and time, place, the town office, you know, should I add in the town and on the town's website?
I would think so. I mean,
There was another section where it talked about financial guarantees, performance guarantees that applicants give us, and it listed like 3 types. And it was only those types listed. And I know with the solar thing, we didn't exactly follow that. So I added language that, or any other mechanism that the planning board determines would, you know, fulfill the purposes or whatever. There were a number of things like that, but no major policy changes.
And the one other thing in Article 6 was the piece that we had talked about as a, partially as a result of the Johnson, was that their name? On Sturtevant Hill Road, the
Oh yeah, the
subdivision,
re-subdivision.
a minor change. So there is some language in the revisions that allows us to view a minor revision to a previously approved subdivision plan. If it involves lot lines, and if it's less than 3 lots, provided it doesn't create any new lots, or there aren't any adverse impacts to the property or to abutting properties. So that site review, the revisions to subdivision plans, Article 7, Section 6. This was new language in footnote 13. That provides that the opportunity for a 5-foot setback reduction for accessory structures in the village doesn't apply if the structure is going to be used as a dwelling unit. So that Jack had inserted that in footnote 13. Article 8. This is the piece that Chip had suggested that we include, and this was a new provision that would require inspection of subsurface wastewater systems in the shoreland district at the time of transfer of ownership of the property. So there is a piece of language about how that unfolds, and that language, it's not exactly the same as state statute, but it follows a corresponding statutory piece quite closely. There are a couple of differences between this language and the statutory language, tailoring it to Reedfield's circumstances. For instance, not the last provision, but 4. So it'd be E4. This piece I inserted to make it consistent with other parts of the statute with regard to penalties and enforcement. So this refers back to Article 2D, which is a general enforcement and penalty provision in the ordinance. And it says that anyone who violates this inspection piece is subject to those provisions, but the minimum penalty for this particular violation is up to $500, and it's less in the earlier provisions of the ordinance. So that's one of the town specific differences in this language.
Is the language about transfer, that number 5, is that from the state law, or is that what we wrote?
I did not write that. Chip, I assume that transfer, what constitutes transfer, came from the state statute.
Yes, it did. The other big change is that the state does have this, but they don't have the requirement that if it passes, that the town should have a copy of it. This way we have more information on septic systems by the shore. If they don't pass, they have to come anyways for a new septic tank, septic system. If they do pass, then they'll have a report, we'll have that on their land records.
The next piece is Article 11, Section 2. This is in the definitions in the ordinance. And we had conversation about adding a reference to tiny homes in the definition of dwelling unit, so that it would, the definition would read to include certain things like mobile homes and tiny homes was added as defined in the statutory provision. And Chip, when I was looking at this again the other day, I noticed that it doesn't say homes anymore. It says tiny houses. And I think the statutory definition is homes, not houses.
Okay.
So that needs to be changed.
I believe you changed it, and that's what you're looking at, extracted, and what we did. Last sentence, it says in tiny houses defined by Maine statute and
Yeah, but I
shall
think
not.
the term in Maine law is tiny homes, not houses.
Okay. Fine.
And Chip, you had told me that you wanted to put that other piece on the table for conversation, the piece I asked you to take out. And I agreed that we could talk about it, although I don't agree that we include it.
Which piece was that?
You had inserted something about the 2-bedroom plumbing code issue.
I believe I took that out.
Yes, you did. You did.
Again, I had put in that the state plumbing commissioner, head of the state plumbing, had decided that these tiny houses would be counted as 2 bedrooms, which is, these tiny houses, for the most part, will have 1 bedroom, but he's gonna count it as 2. So it makes it a bit more difficult for people, and will make them put in 1,000-gallon holding septic tanks. It's not out there, just like there's not a lot out there about tiny houses. And I thought it might be beneficial to have it in ours. So when we run into this, and we will run into this summer, I found out, that it's there and we know this. As it's not in the state statute yet, but it is been defined by the plumbing arm. So Paula seemed to think that that didn't need to be in here, and that's okay. My pushback to Paula was that, we're talking about this now, and I'm here now. Say I wasn't here and you were hearing this, or, it got complicated. It might just not, come up in the approval or turning it down. So I tend to lean toward more information rather than less information. So either way.
When we grant a permit, it's subject to getting the plumbing permit from you later. And
Correct.
so, a tiny house could actually have 3 bedrooms, and we don't specify bedrooms in any other definition of dwelling unit. So it would seem odd to define that a tiny home has to be 2 bedrooms, and the state plumbing inspector might change that also.
Decide how
So
big this is.
And this change that we made wasn't intended to be a piece that addressed tiny homes in a comprehensive way. It was simply to make clear that we do consider a tiny home to be a dwelling unit. And
Right.
in my mind, that was the sole purpose of adding that language to that definition.
So you're just going to change that to tiny homes?
Tiny homes, correct.
Okay.
And then the final piece in the revision package was the rezoning of that single lot in Kents Hill, map 106, lot 2, from academic to rural residential.
Right.
And Jack, you had raised an issue about somewhere it referenced the wrong lot.
Yeah, in the public notice.
Oh, was it? So it was only in the notice that you noticed that.
Nice. But the public notice have the map, and on the map, it did have the proper location. And I did speak to the owner, and she was just very happy that we were doing this.
Did you hear from any of your butters?
Nobody, all the notices went out, nobody called back. Except one guy, Cliff Buck, he was a little bit concerned, but I talked him down.
Is he in a butter?
He's in a butter.
No.
Okay, so any other discussion among board members or questions, concerns?
So what's the next step with this? Mechanically and also procedurally?
Well, I want to, there are a couple of people who have, who seem to be participating. So I want to put out there again, an invitation if anyone has comment or questions about any of these revisions that are being proposed. I'd open it up at this point for your comment. Anyone? Okay, hearing none. Jack, I talked again with Eric about the timeframe for this, and the select board is meeting on Monday, the 11th, and everything that will be in the warrant articles is going to be in their packets for that Monday night. So we have next week basically to make any final changes. And the package has been sent to Kristen Collins for legal review, but we've not heard anything back from her yet. I checked with Eric shortly before the meeting tonight just to see if he had heard anything, and he has not. And so, you know, procedurally, what I would suggest is I'd like for us to take a vote on whether the planning board wants to forward this package as it's written to the select board for their consideration as a warrant article. But we would make that subject to final legal review. That was Eric's recommendation. I guess he's presented things that way before, just to make sure that, you know, if there aren't, if there are, you know, some changes that she might suggest, that we've accommodated for that. So, and so we would wait to hear from her. If there's any change that she's suggesting, we would make those changes next week and then forward to Eric for inclusion in the select board packet.
And the one issue that Don raised, will that be amended too? Angelica, did you get that?
I'm sorry.
On page 2, small j, Don had suggested adding at the end where it says town office. And on the, to add something like, and on the town's website.
I did, yeah, I did write that down earlier, actually.
Okay,
And I think the only other thing was the switch from houses to homes
right.
in the definition of dwelling unit that references tiny houses, and it should be homes. And the one other thing that Eric raised, and I agree with him, he was concerned about, I mean, all of the organizational changes in Article 6 are, and the comments in the column and all of that is pretty difficult to read. And I think that he was hoping for I guess something a little simpler, something cleaner that people could pick up and understand more easily. I'm not sure what that is, and
Well,
yeah,
all I have to do is just take the review off of it. It'll show the final copy with none of the corrections or changes in it.
If it's just clean copy, then people don't know where to look for the changes is the problem.
I mean, I could take the comments that I added in after our last meeting, and I could make those a separate piece of paper make them into bulleted items.
Mhm.
Maybe some sort of list of substantive changes and just an indication that the rest are strictly organizational and non-substantive.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do with the comments I added after the last meeting. Just note the ones that are changes in substance.
Yeah,
But you want me to do another one like that as a separate piece? Leave the comments in as they are for now. But do a separate piece of paper with the comments with a little bit more explanation, maybe as a bulleted list.
yeah, I think that might work better. Per Jan's suggestion. When I had talked to Eric about it, I don't know, last week or late the week before, he was talking to me about the difference between the organizational changes and the substantive changes, and he was trying to figure those out and understand how others were going to be able to pick it up and understand what was going on. And I kind of described it to him as it was difficult to, you couldn't really reflect all of the organizational changes because it gets really messy, and it was almost a situation where we should just say, it's a repeal and replace situation because the organizational changes make it really difficult to put it in legislative format. But if you do that separate bulleted list of substantive changes, and then we could leave the rest of it clean and just say, this has been reorganized. Some substantive changes have been incorporated, and here's a list of what those are. That might be the way to do it.
Okay. When do you need that by?
Next week. We need to have the whole thing in a package ready to go to Eric at the end of next week so he can put it in the packet, in the select board packet. So there's,
Okay.
it's a little time to do that.
So I'll do it by Sunday or Monday.
And, and hopefully we'll hear back from Kristen sometime soon. I'm hoping she doesn't have much with any of this, and then we'd have to incorporate anything that she had. And I think that that's it. Anything else on this package, anyone? I'll put out one more call to anyone who's listening or participating. If there are comments on the LUO revisions, we'd be happy to hear those at this point.
Well, sorry for my tardiness, but I don't have any objections. I have read them over. It all sounds reasonable. I definitely agree with your exclusion of that 2-bedroom item regarding the tiny homes. It's this didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Okay, anything else, anyone? And if not, I would take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion? Take a vote. Don,
yes.
Jan,
Yes,
Noel,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes,
and Paula, yes.
and Bill,
Bill, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen, Bill. I'm so used to
I mean, the
not
reflections.
looking at all the little tiny faces in the town office. Okay, so our next meeting is
do you
the,
need a motion on the,
oh, yes, we do need to do that. Our next meeting is on the 12th of April, and there are several applications that will be on the agenda. And yes, Jack, we do need a motion to approve the proposed revisions to the ordinance and to, subject to final legal review, and to forward those to the select board for their consideration.
so moved.
Is there a second?
and
Discussion? Call for a vote. Don,
Yes.
Jan,
yes,
Noel,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes.
and Paula, yes.
we have the minutes too that were sent out. I don't know if you want to review them or not.
If everyone else has reviewed them and you want to move forward with them, that's okay with me. I didn't have time today to look at them, so I've not reviewed them.
There's part of it that I didn't understand, some of the discussion that was in the minutes, and I couldn't recall what we decided. So, and it had to do with stuff that you were saying,
Me?
Paula. Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Well, like I said, I haven't read it, so maybe we should just carry them over.
yeah, I haven't read
well-
Jack's comments either. I agree with carrying them over.
Okay. All right, let's do that. So the next meeting, we do have the, I need to ask you, Chip, did you get anything, any material from Mr. Morash that will be going into the packet for the 12th?
I'm sure I will. This,
Okay.
I will get,
Okay. And there are two other applications that Chip is aware of that will be coming to us on the 12th, but it will be a completeness determination only on those.
are things supposed to be submitted to Chip the Friday? There's something in our rules about Friday before or a week before the meeting.
The week before, but sooner than Friday. I was thinking that the deadline was Wednesday. Is that right, Chip?
yeah, I give myself usually a good week or more to get the comments, and the Friday before would be impossible. So yes, it'd be at least a week before the hearing.
In general, the material that's going to be in the planning board packet, what have you been telling applicants is the deadline for submitting that?
The Friday before, the week before, so
Friday, but, okay, all right,
So that would be this Friday, right? Which would be the 1st? Is that what
12,
it-
yeah. I have the other two, so I'll be talking to Mr. Morash tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else, anyone? Chip, did you have anything else?
No?
Okay. All right. Thank you all. We
you.
are adjourned and we will see you on the 12th.
See ya.
Hey,
night.
good night.
Right.
Question, I had it was the 19th, why is it on my out of days by a week? We had our meeting as being on the 19th.
Yeah, we had a
Changed.
change.
We had a change.
Yes. Does that cover it? Where is recording? Help me out.
Yeah, and
There's another one besides that.
you might be right.
MP call.